What exactly did we watch in Game 2 between the Indiana Fever and the Las Vegas Aces? Because if you came looking for basketball, for smooth possessions, for clean execution, for rhythm and flow, you probably walked away scratching your head. What we got instead was something that looked like basketball, but felt like something else. Bodies hitting the floor, players wincing and holding ribs, 41 fouls, with 16 of them called in just the third quarter. A game so chopped up by whistles, it felt like the sport had been hijacked by chaos itself. And yet, buried inside that chaos was a story of resilience, of grit, of a young Fever team that refused to crumble, even when the odds and the officials tilted the floor against them. And now, with the series tied at 1, the storm shifts to Indianapolis, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, a building that doesn't just hold fans, it amplifies them, a building that has carried Indiana through comebacks before. The Aces think they regained control in Game 2, but what happens when that chaos collides with 17,000 screaming voices at Gainbridge? Let's break it all down. To really understand Game 2, you have to go back to Game 1, because that's where the story truly began. Nobody, and I mean nobody, expected Indiana to waltz into Las Vegas, stare down the two-time defending champions, and walk out with a double-digit blowout win. But that's exactly what they did. The key: Kelsey Mitchell, the veteran guard who has waited years for this stage, didn't just play well, she detonated. 34 points, a playoff career high, and not empty numbers. These were momentum-killing buckets. Every time the Aces thought they had a run, Mitchell buried a shot to silence it. Her performance wasn't flashy, it wasn't reckless, it was poised. She was in full command of the floor, like the game was bending around her. On the other side of the ball, Indiana's defense delivered something few teams in the league have ever done. They made Asia Wilson look human. Wilson, the reigning MVP, the most dominant interior force in the game, finished just 6 of 22 from the field. Nothing came easy. She was pushed off her spots, forced into bad angles, and swallowed up in double teams. The result? A 16-point Fever victory that sent shockwaves not just through the Aces, but through the entire league. Suddenly, this wasn't just a fun story about a young team making noise. It was real. It was dangerous. And Vegas felt the embarrassment of losing on their own court. And if there's one thing champions hate more than losing, it's losing with the whole world watching. So how would the Aces respond? With adjustments? With tactical tweaks? With sharper execution? Not exactly. From the opening tip of Game 2, it was clear. Vegas wasn't going to outthink Indiana. They were going to outmuscle them. Every possession was a collision. Every cut through the lane met with a shoulder. Every drive answered with a body check. This wasn't just defense. This was Vegas daring the officials to call it, and the officials obliging in a way that turned the game into a whistle-filled mess. By the time the third quarter ended, 16 fouls had been called in just that frame, 41 total on the night, and yet the chaos never really slowed. Vegas didn't want a basketball game, they wanted a brawl disguised as one, and for Indiana, that meant one thing: survival. If there was one player who embodied survival, it was Lexie Hull. Hull came into Game 2 with her back already injured. In fact, she easily could have sat this one out. Most players in her position would have, but she refused. She suited up, wrapped herself in tape, and walked onto the court knowing exactly what was coming: contact, punishment, pain. And sure enough, the Aces tested her right away. Bumps on screens, forearms to the body, extra shoves under the basket. Hull hit the hardwood again and again, but every time she got up. And here's the part that stunned everyone: she didn't just play through it, she produced. 5 made threes, tying the Fever playoff record. Each one was a dagger, each one was defiance. When Hull limped back to the huddle after one of those shots, you could see it in her teammates' faces. Inspiration, a reminder that this series wasn't about comfort, it was about fight. Hull's performance wasn't glamorous, it won't dominate box scores, but it was playoff basketball in its rawest form: grit, and it gave Indiana a heartbeat. While Hull fought on the perimeter, Aaliyah Boston waged war in the paint. Boston's stat line looked solid: 10 points, 13 rebounds, but that doesn't begin to tell the story. Every rebound was a collision, every post-up was a wrestling match: elbows, shoves, body checks. Vegas threw everything at her, and the whistles? They rarely came. Plays that should have sent Boston to the line were swallowed by silence. Instead of being rewarded for her strength, she was punished for it. Possession after possession, she absorbed hits hits that would have sent most players to the bench. But Boston never stopped working, never stopped battling. The frustration was clear on her face, but so was the resolve. She wasn't going to let Vegas break her. Boston's night wasn't about stats. It was about survival and about proving that even when the game feels tilted, she can anchor her team through it. Meanwhile, A'ja Wilson's stat sheet told a very different story. 25 points, 9 rebounds, 5 steals, 2 blocks. To the casual fan, that looks like dominance. Like Wilson bounced back from her Game 1 struggles and reminded everyone why she's the MVP. But if you actually watched, you know the truth. Wilson's buckets didn't come from clean footwork or smooth jumpers. They came from brute force, from bulldozing her way into the paint, from contact that was rewarded with whistles, while similar contact on the other end wasn't. Fans lit up social media, calling out the imbalance. Clips circulated of Boston taking hits without a whistle, only for Wilson to get calls on softer contact. It wasn't dominance, it was advantage. And yet the narrative the next morning praised Wilson for responding like a champion. Meanwhile, the grit of Hull, the bruises of Boston, the effort of Sims, all of it was buried beneath the stat line glow of Wilson's numbers. Perhaps the most glaring shift between Game 1 and Game 2 was Kelsey Mitchell. In the opener, she was unstoppable. 34 points, complete command, the heartbeat of Indiana's offense. But in Game 2, Vegas made her public enemy number 1. Face guarded without the ball, grabbed on cuts, hacked on drives, double teamed on screens. Everywhere Mitchell went, a defender was glued to her, and with the whistles constantly interrupting possessions, she could never find her rhythm. She finished with just 13 points. But the box score doesn't capture the punishment. Vegas didn't just defend Mitchell, they erased her. They forced Indiana to search elsewhere for offense. And in doing so, they thought they'd killed Indiana's chances, but they hadn't counted on the unsung heroes. With Mitchell silenced, the responsibility fell elsewhere. Enter Odyssey Sims, 18 points, crafted out of chaos, drives into traffic, step backs against double teams, contact finishes that often drew no whistle. Sims was relentless. Every time Indiana's offense sputtered, she forced life back into it, and paired with Hull's 5 threes, the Fever had just enough firepower to stay within reach. Every time Vegas surged, Indiana countered. But here's the cruel twist. Those counters were consistently halted, not by defensive stops, but by whistles that broke rhythm, reset the clock, and handed Vegas control of the game's flow. Indiana fought, but they weren't allowed to dictate terms. And that brings us to the next chapter. Because if Game 2 was chaos in Vegas, Game 3 will be something entirely different. Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Indianapolis, a building that doesn't just house fans, it weaponizes them. 17,000 strong, a crowd that roars through every run, that lives and dies with every whistle, that remembers Game 1. Here's why it matters. All season, Indiana has played differently at home. Bolder, louder, more resilient. Opponents don't just face the Fever, they face the noise, the energy, the pressure. Even Aces coach Becky Hammond admitted her team hasn't played well in Indy. The Fever don't just get home court in Game 3, they get an amplifier. And for a team already proving its toughness, that could be the tipping point. Here's the truth. Vegas didn't expose Indiana's weaknesses in Game 2. They exposed the chaos of officiating. They leaned on whistles, on brute force, on physicality, and yet Indiana never broke. Lexie Hull taped herself up, limped onto the court, and delivered daggers from deep. Aaliyah Boston took bruises that would have sent most players to the locker room, and still grabbed 13 rebounds. Odyssey Sims turned scraps into scoring, keeping Indiana alive. Kelsey Mitchell was erased, but only temporarily, and you can bet she's waiting for her chance to answer. Now the storm shifts to Gainbridge, to a building ready to roar, to a fan base ready to turn frustration into fuel. So the question isn't whether Indiana can survive Game 3. The question is, what happens when a young, bruised, battle-tested Fever squad finally gets the chance to fight on their own terms? With 17,000 voices behind them? Comment, "Let's go Fever" if you believe Indiana is about to flip this series. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Because if you thought Game 2 was wild, Game 3 could be unforgettable. The fight isn't over, it's just beginning.